Good morning, everybody. So over the next couple of weeks, at 11 o'clock, I'm going to be doing health talks all about your nutrition to help you. So everybody that's on the body transformation, anybody who's not on the body transformation that just needs a little bit of help this time of year with their nutrition on understanding, because there are so many fatty diets out there and they're all going to tell you that this is the best one to lose weight and essentially this is the only plan that you should be following. I'm taking it right back to basics. I'm making it very, very easy and digestible for you, pardon the pun, to understand your macronutrients to start with, what macros are. And I'm going to be taking each one each week and breaking them down and giving you pure facts about them, when to eat them, what the best source of food is for that macronutrient, what it does for our body, and when the best time to eat them is as well, with regards to your training and with regards to your life. So the first one we're taking is carbs, and I don't want you to see carbs as the enemy. Carbs have had so much bad press over the years. I think the only way is Essex completely ruined everyone's relationship with carbs because they were kind of harping on about no carbs before marbs and everything like this, and carbs are the enemy. Obviously, there are different types of carbohydrates, and I think if you overindulge on the ones that don't bring you closer to health, then they are the ones that are going to essentially make you feel sluggish and possibly make you put on weight, depending on how much activity you are doing. But carbohydrates as a whole are incredibly important in the diet, and everybody needs them within their diet. So I never want you to be afraid of them. I certainly eat a lot of them, and I don't want you to be fearful of them, that they're going to make you fat in any way, shape or form. They won't, as long as you are eating them effectively for you. So macronutrients, these are our three macronutrients: carbohydrates, protein and fats. Today we're talking about carbohydrates. Carbohydrates, what they do for the body, well, when you consume them, they are broken down into glycogen, and they are broken down into glucose, and they're stored as glycogen within your body, within your muscles particularly, that you can call on when you need energy. And they are your first point of call with regards to energy source. So when you do any activity, your body will use its glycogen reserve first. It will use those carbohydrates for your energy as its first point of call. It will then use your fat, residual fats, anything that's kind of stored in your body, that where your body has utilized fat, and then it will use your protein. So our carbs are our first point of call. When you think about carbohydrates, I want you to think about petrol in your car. And essentially, if you don't have enough petrol in your car, you are not going to be able to get and make that journey that you need to make. If you don't have enough carbohydrates in your body that are the right kind of carbs, you again are not going to have enough energy to sustain you throughout your day of everything that you want to take part in. With that in mind, when you're thinking about your timing of your carbohydrates, you probably want to eat more carbs earlier in the day when your body is going to utilize them best than later in the evening when your body doesn't really need them, because all you're going to do is sit down or relax or go to bed. So think about getting in your carbs earlier, and I'm going to talk about timings in a little bit more detail in just a moment. So we have two types of carbohydrates generally: complex carbs and simple carbs. I'm going to talk about simple first. Simple carbs, and I want you to almost associate simple carbs with sugar. So these are the ones that give you energy instantly, very, very quickly. They are very quick releasing energy sources. So if you are needing energy very quick, absolutely, simple carbs are going to be your best friend. However, there are different types of simple carbs. So if we think about, again, sugars, we've got different types of sugars. We've got anything that kind of ends with an ose, so fructose, glucose, that kind of thing, as your sugar. Fructose is the sugar that you get from fruit. And our fruit is a really great source of antioxidants as well. You've got great vitamins and minerals in there. If you are needing a quick release of energy, grabbing a piece of fruit is an absolute brilliant way to give you that instant energy, which is why, you know, you might want to consume things like bananas because they have got a great source of carbohydrate in them. They've also got a brilliant source of potassium in them. You might want to grab apples or pears. I'm a big fan of red berries, strawberries, blueberries, anything like that as well is really, really key. Your citrus fruits are fantastic as well, very, very high in antioxidants, but they have got quite a lot more fructose in them than, say, for instance, an apple. So again, just being mindful of not overindulging in them or eating them in vast quantity, that you are going to actually use that energy, essentially. So we will always say to people, you know, fruit is a great kind of almost pre-workout, or something if you're having a bit of an energy slump in the afternoon and you want to grab something that's going to give you a bit of a boost, definitely a piece of fruit is great. The only problem is with this quick releasing energy is it spikes your insulin levels up quite high, and then they will come crashing down. So it doesn't give you a sustained energy that kind of drip feeds within the body and keeps you feeling energized for a long amount of time. It's kind of like if you were going to run a 100-meter sprint, or if you're going to do a workout where you need something that's going to give you a boost, or say, for instance, you're an instructor and you're wanting something before you teach your classes because you need that quick energy, piece of fruit will be absolutely ideal. You'll utilize that energy, you know, whilst you are teaching, training, running, whatever it might be. The other type of simple carbs is not so great with regards to our health because it's laced with the bad sugar, the glucose. So this is where you have got your white versions of carbohydrate, like your white bread. Now, just a little fun fact for you, bread isn't actually white. So when it's baked and made, so if ever you've baked your own bread, you will know that actually it doesn't come out white. It's kind of a bit of a speckledy colour, often quite, you know, dull in its actual look. People who make bread and want it to be white will have to bleach it white. So it's added nasties in it, bleaching agents that are going to make it white, and often a lot of sugar in there that makes it go white as well. So we want to try avoid as best we can the white versions of things like our bread, things like cakes, biscuits. These are all carbohydrates that actually don't do us so good, because essentially they are heavily laced with sugar, they're simple carbs, and they don't give us energy for a long period of time. Things like white rice, though, is a little bit different. Rice has got a bit more of a different glycemic index, and definitely that's more of a complex carbohydrate. White potatoes as well, definitely more complex carbohydrates, but it's more of your white bread, white crumpets, crackers, all of those kind of things that essentially don't give you energy for a long period of time, and they will often be laced with sugar. So essentially your body, if it's not burning that off, it will store it. Now, anything that you consume that you don't burn off or want to keep in reserve for when you are going to burn it off will get stored, and it gets stored as fat if it's not burnt off. So if someone's eating excessively amounts of white bread, say for instance, they're getting up in the morning and they're in 2 slices of toast or 2 lots of crumpets, white bread, then they're having their lunch and they're having a sandwich or a couple of sandwiches, again, white bread, and then they might be having their evening meal, but then they may have, you know, a couple of slices of toast or, you know, a snack before bed. Again, they may have, say, for instance, a bagel, all white. You know, we always talk about beige food not being great. Obviously, there's no nutrients in it. There's no vitamins, minerals. There's no antioxidants in there as well. And it's quite highly sugared. So when you're thinking about simple carbohydrates, the best ones to choose is going to come from your natural fruits, okay? So any of your fruits that are more, you know, natural fruits, not fruit juice because it's concentrated, but definitely, you know, your raw sources of your fruit, berries, bananas, apples, all of those kind of things. definitely better at giving you a quick burst of energy whenever you need it. Steer away from the white breads, the crumpets, the biscuits, the cakes, because they aren't going to give you energy over a long period of time. They're often laced with a lot of sugar. We know that sugar, is the killer. The more sugar we have and consume in our body, the more acidic our body will become. And essentially, a body that's very acidic grows disease. And these diseases are nasty diseases like cancers. Cancers can't grow in an alkaline body. They can grow massively in acidic body. Also, obviously, as well, any excess sugar consumed from things like your cakes, biscuits, sweets, chocolates, all of those kind of things, if not burnt off, and it's very hard to burn that substantial amount off that we often overconsume, will get stored as fat, adipose tissue under the skin on the body. It's going to make you feel sluggish. It's going to make you feel lethargic. It certainly isn't going to give you energy over a long period of time. We've then got complex carbohydrates, and our complex carbohydrates are often more of our whole wheat or whole grain. They often come from the earth or from, the ground. And these essentially give you a longer, sustained amount of energy over a set period of time. These are the ones that definitely aren't the enemy. These are the ones that definitely are going to be our friend and make us feel like we are energized throughout the day. Now, a lot of women don't eat enough of these carbohydrates. They are fearful of carbs, and they either will steer away completely from carbohydrates, which then causes them to overindulge and binge on the simple carbs, the breads, the cakes, the biscuits, the chocolate, all of those kind of things. Or they will, again, focus on the carbs being the enemy and just see everything as a no-no. Complex carbohydrates, like I said, are more of your whole wheat, whole grain, but definitely things like your rice, your vegetables, any root vegetables got great source of carbohydrate in it. So your potatoes, sweet potatoes, your butternut squash, any of your squashes, things like aubergines, courgettes, carrots, all of these are fabulous sources of carbohydrate. Beetroot as well, absolutely. Cabbage, any of these, cauliflower, brilliant sources of carbohydrates. These should be implemented into your diet on a regular basis. Also, you've got your other grains. So you've got whole grains, you've got legumes, you've got pulses. These are great sources of protein as well as carbohydrates. Any beans are great sources of protein, but also great sources of complex carbohydrates. Brilliant to be adding into your diet. So all of these fabulous foods should be on a regular basis seen in your meal 1, meal 2, meal 3, absolutely throughout the day. And they're going to give you that kind of steady state. Instead of spiking your insulin up and then coming crashing down, it gives you more of a steady state. So it helps to balance insulin, stops you becoming insulin resistant, because often what happens is when your insulin spikes up and then comes crashing down, if that's done too regularly, your body will just refuse how it responds to insulin, essentially, and you'll end up becoming insulin resistant, where your body won't be able to utilize insulin properly and utilize carbohydrates and glucose. So we want to have more of a steady state stream. If you think about like a drip of carbohydrates throughout the day, and like I said, use your carbohydrate like your petrol in the car. You wouldn't expect to go on a massive journey with no petrol in the tank and expect to get there and then fill up at the end of the journey. You'd need the petrol in the tank before you left off. And that's exactly the same as you throughout the day. So try and eat these carbohydrates, these complex carbohydrates throughout the day, earlier on, maybe less towards the end of the day. If you know you're not going to need them, you're not going to be so active, because your carbohydrates, like I said, they're going to be giving you your energy. The last thing you want to do is eat a load of carbs before you go to bed, because your body's going to be digesting those, utilizing them, and probably keeping you awake all night because you're going to feel energized. So Let's go back to bread and let's talk about bread, because people always ask about bread. Um, if you're going to eat bread, I would definitely opt for sourdough, because it's got a slower glycemic index into it. It's got slightly different than conventional. So your body breaks it down differently. And again, it's going to be that drip stream of carbohydrates, good energy throughout the day. I wouldn't recommend, however, eating sourdough bread for every single meal. So if you are going to have breakfast and you're going to have something on toast, you know, say for instance, scrambled egg, or you're going to have your smoked salmon or beans or anything like that, opt for sourdough, ideally whole wheat or whole meal, definitely better source of carbohydrates for you first thing in the morning. If you're not going to have sourdough, you know, bread sources in the morning, because you may be having an omelette, or maybe you're having overnight oats, or you're having porridge oats in the morning, all of these are brilliant sources of carbohydrate. But you are going to say, for instance, have bread in lunchtime, you are going to have a sandwich. Again, opt for whole wheat or whole grain sourdough bread, rather than opting for your white bread, or even, it's even better than you know, opting for normal whole grain or whole wheat bread. But what we want to try and do is give ourselves the opportunity to eat more foods that have got more nutrients in them, because bread hasn't really got very much nutrients in them. Yes, okay, if you're eating sourdough whole wheat bread, it's a steady state carbohydrate, but it's got nothing else in it that's going to give you any value, that's going to help you with your nutrition. So instead, if we're opting maybe for having more vegetables, they've got more nutrients, vitamins and minerals in them as well. If you're opting for potatoes, again, that's a nice steady state carbohydrate that's going to give you energy for a long period of time. And again, there's no excess nasties added to a potato. It's come from the ground, especially if you're like my dad, who grows his own. Fantastic, absolutely amazing. And it's super fresh and full of all those lovely nutrients as well. But also you've got carbohydrates, like I said, in your squashes, like butternut squash, or any of your root vegetables, beetroots, or your carrots. And again, these would be brilliant sources of carbohydrate. Your rice, your beans, your legumes, all of these are fantastic sources of carbohydrates. If you are going to opt for pasta, there's different sources of pasta that you can have. Again, you could go for whole wheat or whole grain. You can actually get pea pasta. Aldi do a brilliant pea pasta that's not made from carbs, and instead you've got it from the carbs that you get from the peas. Again, that's a great option that's going to give you a bit more of a steady state carbohydrate. A lot of people find, because pasta is kind of man-made, it doesn't come from the ground, they struggle with how they break down that food, and it can make them feel a bit gassy, a bit bloated. It can irritate the gut a little bit, depending on how it's processed and how it's made. So I don't want you to be fearful of carbohydrates. If you are going to have breakfasts, I would opt for your oats, porridge oats, brilliant source of carbohydrate, sourdough bread, but maybe try not to have too much of it. Certainly don't have it continuously throughout the day. Opt for banana, any apples, pears. These are all brilliant sources of carbohydrate as well in there that you can add into, you know, your diet on a daily basis. And then if you're going to have your lunch and think about carbohydrates, maybe adding in things like couscous, quinoa, adding in legumes, pulses, beans, adding in potatoes, rice. These are all going to be brilliant sources of carbohydrates. In the evening, Jason and I tend to keep our carbohydrates a little lighter for our evening meal, rather than you know, we tend to have our carbs throughout the day. So we will have our carbs in our meal 1 and our meal 2 for definite, from the capacity of our oats, or our, you know, those of you that follow me on social media, I love a banana omelette, and that's a brilliant source of protein, but also you've got the carbohydrates in there from the banana. So I'll have my banana omelette, and then I'll have maybe some additional fruit there as well, maybe some blueberries. These are brilliant, you know, source of carbohydrate, but also you've got your antioxidants in there as well. And then in the day for our meal 2, Jason will have his salmon and he'll have rice. I will often have either fish, or I'll have steak, or I'll have chicken, again, with lots of veggies or lots of salad and things like couscous and rice, potatoes in there as well. So adding that in. And then evening meal, mainly much more higher protein and good fats, rather than packing it out with carbs. We will still have a little bit of carbs, and that will come from maybe, you know, some potatoes, or it might come from some rice, but we're not heavily going over on the carbs in the evening, because once our day is done and we've done all our exercise and we've trained and we've taught all our classes, we've done all our sessions, essentially we're wanting that body to start to calm down and our digestive system to relax. You don't want to be going to bed too close to after eating that last meal. So giving yourself at least an hour to digest your food properly, and then you'll be able to get on your merry way for your sleep. And hopefully that sleep will be really restful. So we don't think about carbs being the enemy. We absolutely think about carbs being our friend, but it's going for the best sources of carbohydrates. If you are training and you're focusing on your training, like everyone on the body transformation, thinking about if you want to have something as a pre-workout, so something that's going to give you a bit of boost of glycogen within those muscles, maybe give you a bit more of a pump effect, definitely look at having some complex carbs. You don't need to have a full big on meal, but it could be just a banana. It could be porridge oats with some blueberries. It could be an apple with some peanut butter. It could be a couple of rice cakes, maybe with some hummus, or again, peanut butter in there if you want to, as a quick little snack, as a pre-workout, and then you can get on your merry way and do your training. And that give you maybe a bit of a boost to work out. Some people like to work out and they're fasted. Some people like to work out and have fuel in the tank, and that's absolutely fine. There's benefits of doing both, and there's scientific evidence behind both. It just depends on what kind of person you are and how you feel. Some people feel a bit shaky, a bit lightheaded if they've not got any fuel in the tank for actually working out. Some people find that they thrive on the fact that they work out fasted, and then they'll have their food quite quickly after they finish that workout. But definitely the carbs can help you fuel the tank, ready for your workout or training or whatever it is that you're doing. So like I said, I'm going to take each macronutrient over the next couple of weeks. So we'll be talking about protein and we'll be talking about fats over the next couple of weeks. But I hope that's helped. I hope that's helped you understand a little bit more about carbohydrates, about what they are, what they do for us, how not to be scared of them, but also which ones are definitely going to bring you closer to health and closer to your goals and your gains, and then when to eat them, when to think about eating them from there. So when you're on the body transformation, we give you your grams of your macros to meet, and then you can log everything and you'll see your little tracker fill up for the day, and you're aware then of whether or not you're over consuming or you're under consuming, and that will give you guidance, and we can guide you every week and tweak those macros if you need it. But please let me know if there's any questions, anything at all that you want to ask about, but hopefully that's helped. And I look forward to catching you on a live or a catch up real soon. Thanks so much, gang.